Hi all, and welcome back to another video. Today's video will be a follow-up video to the process I am currently going through in regards to trying to extract drinking water from seawater. Now, I've made a couple of videos on this. There was one that was only done a couple of days ago. If you go back into the feed, you'll be able to find it. I'll also provide a link as well. But the idea is basically you put a jar of seawater inside a larger jar, and during the day the evaporation process occurs due to the moisture actually heating up in the jar, and then during the night when it cools down, the water actually recondensates and runs down the inside of that bigger jar to collect on the bottom. So basically, in the previous video I did, I was going to give it 3 cycles. So the idea is to give it 3 days. That's 3 full days to fully evaporate, 3 nights to condensate. As you can see here, this was day 2, and the results were quite impressive. So I immediately seen the evaporation, of course, and I was immediately starting to see condensation forming as well. Now, I'd recommend going back and watching the original video I did. It was a couple of years ago, so it's 2021. I'll provide a link in the top corner there as well. But it's a very basic setup in that video. It was just 2 glass jars, one smaller, one large. The small jar was filled with seawater and placed inside the larger jar, and the idea was to produce drinking water from it. I knew the yields were not going to be fantastic, but I wanted to see if the process could be done and provide visible yield, and it most certainly did. And then what I found was there were so many suggestions in the comment section on ways I could improve it. So what I've done is I've taken some of those suggestions and I've redesigned the solar still. So you can see on the right hand side there's the solar still with the black charcoal in it. Basically that's the new design, and the design I'm currently opening up there is the basic design. And what I wanted to do was to see if I can improve the yields now by taking some of those suggestions and applying it to a new design. So first of all, what I wanted to do was I actually wanted to empty this basic design, and I was going to measure how much drinking water it produced over those 3 cycles. Now, keep in mind that both of these solar stills have been in the same environment, in the same position in my yard, so they should have received the same amount of sunlight, the same amount of darkness. They should have received the same amount of charging and the same amount of recondensation as well. And by giving both of them the same opportunities, I should be able to see if there's a better yield from the charcoal still itself. So as you can see here, there is a bit of moisture in there. I used the scraper to actually scrape up as much moisture as I could. Purely, I wanted to get a good idea of what the results were. It's only an average, it's an approximation. But by measuring the results from both of these setups, I should be able to determine whether the charcoal still is an improvement over the baseline still. So here you can see, obviously we're using some medicine cups to measure it. Nothing too technical, but it should give me a good reading in milliliters. And from that, obviously, we'll be able to determine whether the charcoal still is actually an improvement over the baseline still. So from this baseline still, you can see that we've collected approximately 2.5 mil. If I was to collect up all the moisture inside that jar, it'd approximately be about 3 mil. So it's not a great yield for 3 days. It's not going to stop you from dying of thirst or anything like that. But the basic idea is there, and the idea of this video is to see whether we can improve on the yields, as I've repeated probably way too many times already. So now it's time to move on to the charcoal still, but obviously not before testing it. So I've got the 2.5, 3 mil. I just wanted to test to make sure that it was indeed drinking water, and as you can see there, it was definitely drinking water. It's not salt water. It didn't leak out of the jar or anything like that. It was recondensated moisture that's consumable. So now it's time to actually reset the still. So even though this is after 3 days, what I want to do is I'm going to sit it there for a good month, and I'll come back in a month's time and do another video as well to see if I can get a better comparison between the two. So now it's just a matter of opening up the charcoal still. So this is the new design. The idea is the water should evaporate out of the bottom jar and have to pass through the charcoal. Basically the charcoal should moisten, and then because the dark nature of the charcoal itself, it should absorb more radiant energy from the sun, which should result in more evaporation. And immediately we can see the results have indeed improved. There's definitely more moisture in the charcoal still than there was in the baseline still. It's evidently, the visual evidence is there. So without even measuring it, it was evidently the case that the charcoal still was definitely an improvement over the baseline still. So we still went ahead and we measured it anyway. Plus I wanted to do a taste test on it as well, just to make sure that it was indeed drinking water, consumable water, and not salt water that had accidentally leaked out of the pickle jar itself. So immediately you can see here, even without scraping it, we've almost got 7 mil. By the time we finished scraping this jar out, I think it worked out to be about 7.5 to 8 mil. Obviously, what was strange about this jar as well is I noticed that there wasn't as much moisture sticking to the side of the jar. So it's just an observation. There was something totally different about this jar. What we may also need to do at some point as well is swap the jars around, just to make sure that the two jars weren't different in some way. So perhaps the baseline jar wasn't sealing correctly and the moisture may have been escaping, which resulted in lower yields. So I believe at some point, perhaps after this month's test, what I'll do is I'll swap it all around and we'll retest it to see if there's any different yields. So you can see there, 7.5 mil. I'd reckon about 8 mil by the time you finish scraping out the jar completely. So once again, it wasn't a huge yield, but it was double the yield of the baseline jar. So adding the charcoal to the still has potentially increased the yield of the drinking water twofold. So it's doubled the rate of production, which is a massive improvement. It's one step towards improving this even further. And as you can see there, the taste test was successful, and in fact, it tasted better having passed through the charcoal than the baseline one did. The baseline one tasted extremely distilled water quality. I'm not sure if anyone's ever tasted distilled water before, but it is extremely bland. There's really a funny taste to it. Whereas the one that had passed through the charcoal actually had an extremely pleasant rainwater quality taste to it. So it was a good improvement all over. So basically that's it for this video. It was just a matter of resetting it back up. Like I say, I'll be coming back to it in about a month's time. In fact, 31 days, I'll take note from now. We'll let it settle and sit for that period of time. So it'll be 31 recharges and 31 recondensation processes or cycles. And during that period of time, I hope to see quite a quantity of water being produced. Now, unfortunately, that's all the time I have for this video today. I'm happy that I got to do an update for everyone. If you felt that you've got any value from this video or learnt anything from it, or just happy to see what the results were, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Other than that, until next time, thanks for watching. Cheers. Bye.